Parents, welcome to Max Made Easy. So in this video also let us continue our discussion with the chapter 1 class 4 mathematics among 4-digit numbers. So in this video we will discuss how we can represent the 4-digit number in words in different format. Okay, so we'll discuss few exercises which is given in your textbook. Okay, so we'll start with our first exercise. So your question is you have to convert 4200, that is the given number. 4200 is the given number. Okay, so you have to convert this number, you have to represent this number in words. So how will you represent this number in words? So if you look at this number, so we have ones place and tens place, okay, and then you have hundreds place, and then you have thousands place. So th, I will use th for representing thousand. Okay, so this is a 4-digit number. So 4-digit number we have ones place, tens place, hundreds place and thousands place. So here in this number its ones place is 0. And what is tens place? That is also 0. And what is hundreds place? It is 2. And thousands place, it is 4. Okay. So any number, it can be represented with the lowest place value. So this is here, what is the lowest place value? It is ones. Okay, the lowest place is ones. So any number can be represented as in ones term with the whole value. So this one is actually nothing but it is, you can say this as 4200 ones. Okay, that is what this value is. This is 4200 ones. So for example, if you have 5, okay, what do you mean by 5? It is 5 ones actually. Okay, 1. So if you take 1, then one more 1, another 1, 2, another 1, another 1, another 1. Like that, 5 ones is 5 basically. Okay, so that is what. Then suppose you have 10. Okay, suppose you are given a number 10. So this 10, this is actually, so this is ones place and this is tens place. Okay, so you don't have 100 and 1000 in this case. So this is ones place and this is tens place. And so you have this one, you can represent as 1 10 and 10 ones, like that. Both are correct. This number, if you want to represent this number, this is 10, you can write it as 10. We can write 10 as, how you can write 10? You can write 10 as 10 ones. 10 ones. Okay. And what is another representation? 10 ones, and you can also represent it in terms of tens. So how you can represent this 10 in terms of tens? 1 10. Okay, both are correct. Okay, so this is the different representation. This is how you can represent 10, and this 10 you can represent only in these two ways, because there is no 100 and there is no 1000. You have only ones place and tens place. So now let's say this is 12. You have 12. So how can you represent 12 in terms of ones and tens? Because you can represent ones, any number in terms of ones is the whole number. It is 12 ones. Okay, 12 is 12 ones. Now what about tens? Can you represent this 12 in tens terms alone? No, we cannot represent. Why? Because see, 110 is making sufficient 10, but there is a place value here. Tens, you can represent it as 110. Why? Because the place value of ones place was 0. So now here in the ones place you have a place value. For the lowest place there is a face value is there. So you cannot represent it in the higher term alone. Okay, in 10 terms alone you cannot represent this 12. You need ones place also. Why? Because in the lowest place there is a place value, it is not 0. Okay, so if you have a lowest, in your lowest place, if you have 0, you can represent that number in the higher term. Okay, so I will explain this procedure once again. That is 10 you can represent as 10 ones. Okay, so any number you can represent as that many number of ones. Okay, 10 ones. So if you have 100, it is 100 ones. If you have 35, it is 35 ones. If you have 56, it is 56 ones. You can represent any number like this. Now this 10, you can also represent 10 as 1 10. 1 tens is also 10. Okay, so now you have to understand that you could represent. So here in this number you have only two places. What is ones place and tens place? You have ones place and you have tens place. Now in your lowest place here, which is your lowest place? It is ones place. So ones place, the place value of ones place was 0. That is why you could represent this as 1 tens. Okay. So now let's take another example. 20. So 20, how can you represent 20? Yeah, any number, it is that many ones. So it is 20 ones. Okay. Now you can represent this 20 as 2 tens. You can represent this 20 as 2 tens. Why? Because this 20, the place value, the lowest place, the place value of the lowest place, ones place was 0. That is why you could represent 20 as 2 tens. Now let's take another example. You have 15 and 37. So how will you represent this 15? Yeah, you can represent it as 15 ones. We can represent this 15 as 15 ones. Okay. And you can also represent 15 as how many tens? You have only ones and tens here. We have only ones and tens here. How many tens? 1 10 and 5 ones. Okay. Because it was 1 tens and 0 ones. So 0 ones you don't have to write. So that is why 10 you could represent it as 1 10. But here 15, your place value at one's place is not 0. So you need that 1 10 and 5 ones. Okay. So this is how you represent 15. Now what about 37? It is 37 ones. It is 37 ones, and another representation, it is 3 tens and 7 ones. 3 tens and 7 ones. So this is how you represent the number in different form. Now let's go for a 3-digit number. Let us say 300. Okay. So if it is 300, yeah, any number, that many number of ones, 300 ones. That is 300. Now what is another representation? You have ones place, so you have ones places here, tens places there, 100 places there. So now this place value is 0 for ones and place value 0 for tens. So now this place value happens to be 0 for both these cases. Okay. So you can represent in terms of tens. If you want to represent in terms of tens, what you can do? You can combine these two numbers. Okay. Because that many ones, how did you got that? These many numbers, all these things, that many ones. So now your ones place is 0. So now if you want to represent this one, 0 ones, you can eliminate 0 ones and then you have to represent the remaining. So how will you represent the remaining? That many tens. So what is the remaining? 30. So it is 30 tens. So this is basically 30 tens and 0 ones. So since it is 0, you don't have to say that 0 ones. Okay, because that is not implicating any values. It is 0. So 30 tens is also 300. Now how will you represent it in 100 alone? Because this ones and tens are 0. You can represent that as 100 also, because 0 ones and 0 tens, and how many hundreds? So it is 300s. Okay, it is 300s, and then the 0 ones you don't have to say. The same way remaining, this is 3 hundreds and then the remaining is 0 tens and 0 ones. That you don't have to say. So it is 300s. Okay, so this 300, 300, you can represent like this in 3 different ways by 300 ones. So that's the whole ones, 300 ones. Then 0 ones and then the remaining. So 30 tens. So 30 tens and 0 ones. We don't have to say that. So that is 30 tens. And then these two places are 0. So this is 300, 300s and these many 0 tens and 0 hundreds. Okay, so we'll do one another example. Let's say 310. So how will you do this 310? It is 310 ones. So ones representation, that many ones. Okay, now what about tens? 0 ones, and if you want to represent it is 0 ones and these many tens. So that is 31 tens. Okay, 31 tens. Now can you represent this in 100 terms alone? No, you cannot represent this in 100 terms alone. Why? Because the tens, there is a place value for 10, 1. It is not 0. So you cannot represent this number in 100 terms alone. You can represent this as a combination of 100 and tens only. Okay, so the lowest ones you can like this one. If whenever the place value is 0, then you can represent it in the higher terms. Okay, if the place value is not 0, you cannot represent it in the higher terms alone. Okay, so this one 31, you cannot represent it in 100 terms alone. So you can represent it as 300s and 110 because your place value of 10 is not 0. So you cannot represent this in higher place, 100 place alone. So this 310, the representation is 300 and 110 and it is actually 0 ones, so, but you don't have to write 0 ones. Okay, so this is how you have to represent the combination, like the numbers in different format. So now we will come back to our textbook exercise. Your question is 4200. So now how will you represent 4200? Okay, what all are the possible ways? So any number you can represent it as that many ones. So 4200 ones. Okay, that many ones, 4200 ones. That is one representation. So this one will mark the place ones, tens, 100 and 10,000. Now, can you represent this in tens terms? Yes, you can represent this in tens terms alone. Why? Because ones place is 0. So, since ones place is 0 and if you want to represent this in tens terms, the remaining numbers. Okay, so 420 tens. This is 420 tens. This number is 420 tens. Yeah. So now can you represent this in 100 terms alone? Yes, you can represent this in 100 terms alone. Why? Because the tens place is also 0. Tens place value is also 0. So ones place value is 0, tens place value is 0. So we can represent in the higher terms 100. So when you want to represent in 100 terms alone, how will you get the remaining? So these place value removed and then the remaining value. So that is 4200s. Okay, so this is 4200. Okay, so now can you represent this in 1000 terms alone? No, you cannot represent this in 1000 terms alone. Why? Because the place value of 100 is not a 0. So you cannot represent this in 1000 terms alone. So because you can represent as a combination of 1000 and 100 because you cannot represent because place value is 100. Okay, so this is 4000 and 200s. Okay, so you can represent. So basically this is 4200 and then 0 tens and 0 ones. So you don't have to mention then, so since the tens place and ones place are 0. Okay, so this is 4200 and 0 ones and 0 tens. So you don't have to write. So 4200 you can represent in these many ways. 4200 ones. So any number that many 1,25,000. So 1,25,000 ones it is. Any number that many number of ones. Then tens. If the place value of 1 is 0, you can represent the number, any number in that many tens. Okay, just cut off that place value, then you get the remaining. So this is 420. So that is 420 tens. Now this ones place and tens place happen to be 0. So you can represent it in hundreds terms. So that is 40 to 100. And here thousands terms alone we cannot represent. Why? Because place value of 100 is 2. So this will become 4000. TH stands for 1000, 4000 and 200. Okay. So this is how you have to convert the numbers into words, the different representation. So we'll do another exercise in your textbook. So the next question is 3897. Okay, so now this one, see all these values, see this is not a place value. Okay, so no, there is no 0 here. Okay, so now how will you represent? So now how will you represent? If you want to represent it as ones, the whole number, it is as ones. Okay, these many number of ones. Now another thing, how will you represent this is like, suppose you are asked to represent this number in terms of hundreds, tens and ones. Okay, then how will you represent? That is, you should not use the thousand term. Then how will you represent? Okay, so ones, how many ones here? So that is 7 ones. So ones you can write it as 7. And how many tens here? 9 tens is here. So that is done. So now what you have? The remaining is 38. So now what you have to do is like 100. So how can you represent this one? This you can write it as 38 hundreds. Okay. So this is how you have to represent it. So if you are given a format, how you have to decompose it. They are asking you should use only hundreds. So since this is 1000 terms, so the remaining that many hundreds. So it is 38 hundreds, 9 tens and 7 ones. Okay, so now suppose if you want to represent this one, the same number 3897, you have to represent in terms of, you have to write that in terms of tens and ones. Okay, so you have to write this in terms of tens and ones, tens and ones. How will you write? Ones is definitely 7, that many ones. Now you have to represent the remaining in tens. So what you have to do? The whole numbers, the entire number, that many tens, 389 tens. So this is how you have to do, 389 tens and 7 ones, like that. Now this one you have to represent the same number, you have to represent 3897. The same number you have to represent in terms of thousands and ones. How will you represent thousands and ones? So ones you already know. Okay. Thousands and ones. Okay. So now what you know, what is the thousand value? Thousand value is 3. Okay, and then you have to represent the remaining in ones. So how many ones? The whole numbers, that many number of ones. So it is 897 ones. Understood? So this is how you have to represent the numbers, convert it into the given format. Okay, so now let's do one more question. Your question is 6875. How can you represent these numbers? Okay, what all are the different forms? So first one is that many number of ones. That is one representation. Now what you can write? Next one, these many tens and 5 ones. Okay, that is, so tens and ones we have represented. Now next what you can do? Hundreds. How many hundreds? I am writing 6800. So okay, 6800, that much covered. And then you have 7 tens and 5 ones. Okay. Then what is the next format? It is I am making 1000. So 6 10,000 and this one 875. You can represent in many ways. What is 800 and I can write it as 75 ones. Okay. And again this one 6 10,000, 800, 7 tens and 5 ones. Like that all these possible combinations you can write. Okay. So this is how you have to decompose the numbers into different things. So I am winding up this video now. So let's continue this discussion in the next video. So if you want to receive more such videos, please do subscribe to my channel. And if you like this video, please do give a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.